Welcome to another episode of the Anyone But Cam Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts and one half of their commissioners. My name is Frankie, and sitting across the internet from me is Cam. Cam, how's it going?
It's not too bad, Frankie. Having a good day. Waivers just rolled. It was pretty good. How are you doing?
Good, dude. I mean, this is the final waivers as the waivers deadline has finally passed. The keeper deadline's passed. So many deadlines have been passed, man. It's exciting because it means I have less things to worry about.
Yeah, I can't believe we've actually voted to have a waiver deadline. Crazy.
I know. Hope you all guys got your defenses and your kickers and your quarterbacks in line because the waivers are over this week. Thank you to Justin for announcing that on my behalf. So today, let's go through our topics real quick. We'll do some quick housekeeping, and then we have a quick question here to start us off. That'll be fun. Waiver discussion, our usual weekly rewinds. We're going to have a segment this week going over what teams need as we make our push towards the fantasy playoffs here, entering division play this week. It's very fun. Then we'll do our matchup of the week, talk about all the other matchups in our pick'em section, and then we have a full mailbag today. Lots of questions. Thank you all for submitting. So let's get going. What do you say, Cam?
I think we should do it. Yeah.
Alrighty. Starting off with housekeeping. Deadlines have passed, as I mentioned. Trade deadlines passed. Keeper eligibility deadline has passed. As you all hopefully noticed, I added to the pinned post a keeper eligibility master sheet. Basically, I just wrote down everyone's roster prior to the keepers running. Prior to the waivers running this morning. And so those are all the players that you are eligible to keep for the next season. You can refer to it at any time because it's just always going to be there, along with the Constitution and the Week 13 schedule. So that's up there for your convenience and for mine. Only other housekeeping bit here is we've had a bit of a discussion this morning about tiebreakers as we push forward into the division play and then eventually the playoffs section of the season. We don't specifically have any mandate on how tiebreakers are going to work. So the two ways that make sense to me in the event of teams with the same records going for a division title or a wild card spot, the two tiebreakers that we would use is either points for or head-to-head record. Cam and I, we discussed this a little bit this morning and discussed a bit with Justin as well. I think what we are coming down to right now is thinking that maybe for division titles, we should have, in the event of a record being tie, we have the tiebreaker be head-to-head matchups, kind of like in the NFL. But then for wild card spots, we have that be points for. What were your thoughts on it, Cam?
Yeah, I feel like that's the most fair way to do it because, it's your division game, so you should be able to win those if you're trying to win your division. And then, for wild card spots, it's more fair to do points for because there's a lot more buys during those, inter-division games. So the score that you get in those specific games might not be as representative of your team. And then I like head-to-head record for in-division things because, it is also possible that teams could go 1-1 against a division rival. And I think what we were thinking there, Frankie, is just see who has the higher points scored in those combined two games, right?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to do it because then you kind of combine both points for and head-to-head. And I like that format because, just, for example, I have JP this week and, not to say it's guaranteed, but it's looking like at this point the division title will probably go to either me or JP. We'll talk about it later. But I did beat him week 2, I think it was. Maybe it was week 3. And so, if he beats me this week, it could come down. I think maybe it should come down to, we just tally up the points from those two games and just, the average win margin or whatever, however you'd say it, is the team that wins. That I feel like that makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, so we'll keep that dialogue going as we have some time to discuss that. I'd love to hear some input from you guys too, just to think of what we're going to do because we don't have it written down, and this is just something flexible I think we could definitely all talk about and work together on. And yeah, so that was housekeeping, and we'll go on quickly to quick questions here. Now, Cam, did you come up with these quick questions or what?
So yeah, this is really just me not sure about some of the specific rules going on, and kind of close to my heart because of the implications of these questions. So the main question was: are first round buys given to just the two best records in the league, or the two best division winners? Because like right now, if the season ended today, Levi would have the second best record, but would not be winning a division. So I'm just seeing if he would have the first round bye in that situation.
Well, just looking at how Keeper has a default, if players were to start this week, it has you having a bye and it has Dylan having a bye. So in that instance, that would mean the two best division winners have the bye.
All right. Like, I don't know which way is better, but I was just curious.
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess something else we need to talk about too. I'm not super. I think, yes, that's a toughie. I'm not totally sure.
Maybe you and Justin, have a little powwow, talk about it, maybe see if you want to put something up to a vote.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. That is an interesting one. Alrighty, and if that's it, we'll just go right into our waiver discussion.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Fun waivers this morning. Sorry they were delayed. That's my fault. I fixed it. But some interesting news. I guess actually the delay kind of worked out because between I believe 8 and 9 a.m. we had the report that Dez Bryant will be signing to the New Orleans Saints, and we saw the impact of that immediately with Austin Laster spending $69 on Dez Bryant, outbidding the competition by $59. But I think this is what we chalk up to one of those moral victories, wouldn't you say?
The only thing I can really say about this is nice.
Yeah, I wanted to talk quickly about what happened on my end. I ended up wasting $18. Math is hard. $18 this morning, with securing Cordero, Patterson, Mariota, and the Colts defense. $6 each. No one else bid on them. I'll be surprised to not see anyone bid on the Colts defense, but whatever. I don't particularly want Cordero Patterson on my team, which is why I say I was a bit bamboozled last night and this morning, because I saw that JP has who I'm playing against this week has an open running back slot. He needs a running back this week, and so I went to look at our waivers and I said, just looking at like all teams players are available, I go, Cordero Patterson and Jamal Williams are both available, but not realizing that Cordero Patterson is designated as a wide receiver, even though he was used as a running back like exclusively in the last game. So I was like, and I'm like, JP will go for the Patriots player, so I'll just bet on him. But no, he bet on Jamal Williams and got him instead, and now I have Cordero Patterson, who I don't even want on my team. So cool.
Way to go, Frankie. Yeah, one other thing that I thought was super interesting, Logan touched about this, but Justin spent $3 on Justin Tucker, who he dropped last week, and Justin Tucker is currently on a bye. So either some 4D chess is going on, or Justin just isn't paying enough attention. But as Justin tends to do with the things he has, he threw it off to the side, and now came back to it later and is just using it for cheap and dirty points, hopefully.
Yeah, that's... I mean, he's a very good kicker, but you never know. You never know what's going on with Justin.
Yeah, and then finally, Dylan sitting there with the most waiver money now, and I noticed that he bid on a lot of different defenses, and ended up with getting the Falcons defense, which, isn't that great of a defense. Playing Cleveland this week could be okay, but I'm not sure if he needs to be as stingy with his money as he's being right now, because he's got some important interdivision games coming up.
Yeah, that's where I thought he'd be bidding, or at least him, or at least one other person would be bidding on the Colts defense, which is why I went for the $6 bid, but not so. Alrighty, so that was our waiver discussion, and we're going to go right into our weekly recap, and we will start with our matchup of the week, which was Devin versus Justin. Hey, we got one right this week. It was actually a really close matchup.
Yeah, no, it was a nail biter.
Yeah, Devin ends up taking this game just a 7-point victory, the closest of the week. on the back of Jordan Howard, taking control of the backfield as he probably should, because he is, the more prototypical and the better running back overall. Sorry, Tariq. We'll talk about you later. You have my heart, though. And then some other little takeaways from Devon's side is Todd Gurley had an okay game. What? That's kind of wild. But the whole Saints game was just a very, especially at least the first half of that game. The Rams having a lot of trouble getting a lot of stuff going in that second quarter, moving into the third. And then we talked about this. I talked about this a bit last week with how much we all like Kerryon Johnson, but he is going through a bit of a gauntlet of tough run defenses, and we saw the first week of it this week with 5.9 for Minnesota. It gets Chicago, Carolina, and then Chicago again, followed up by the Rams, who've been a little bit hot and cold run defense, but can definitely shut people down, as we saw with Mark Ingram. Talk about him a little bit later. But yeah, those are my takeaways from Devon's side. And then looking more over to Justin's side, Christian McCaffrey had his second best running game of the year on the ground, yards-wise at least. Continues to impress me more and more every single week. And looking at his receiving core, Devontae Parker does what Devontae does, which is get you hyped and then completely disappoint you. I mean, partially it's hard when your quarterback's Brock Osweiler, but you have to take into consideration all factors. And then my only other big note here, Justin, is Justin really needed this win to stay competitive in the wild card race, which we'll talk about in a bit. But at this point, he's kind of on the outside looking in, going into division play, and in a division with two really strong opponents in Dylan and Levi.
Yeah, there were a lot of interesting takeaways from this game. One that I had was, we thought having the trade of the Lions trading away Golden Tate might help out Devon's team because Kerryon Johnson and Kenny Golladay could get more targets, but it just kind of seems like that Lions offense can't have nearly as good of an overall offense without Golden Tate through this 1 week we've seen without him, and neither of them performed very well. The entire Lions offense didn't. So he's got to hope that they can figure out how to keep producing without having as many weapons there in Detroit. And then that could definitely lead to less production from his Eagles
Philly Dilly
players in the future if Golden Tate is taking some targets away from them too. So while Devon was able to pull off the win here, not sure how it'll look for him going forward.
Alrighty, looking for more over towards Lassie versus Levi. The next matchup, Levi gets another big win. As I mentioned a little bit ago, Ingram sucks, and he's maybe my most disappointing player his entire season next to Le'Veon Bell. Just how much he hasn't changed what's going on in New Orleans. Good for them or whatever. Good for you, whatever. And in typical Levi fashion, he was carried by his receiving core. DeAndre Hopkins for 21, Michael Thomas for 33, Travis Kelce 25, and then with that early Sunday pickup of Marquise Valdes-Scantling, looking to be pretty good, 6 targets, 3 catches, and Geronimo Allison went on IR after the game, which could lead to more production that way. Levi's team looking strong. Looking more over to Lassie's side, we had a good game here for Amari Cooper, which he's pretty touchdown dependent, but we'll continue to see how his role evolves in that Cowboys offense, if you want to call it that. Gordon benefited from a lackluster receiving core in New England, kind of like in Dallas. Plays through a dislocated finger. I actually didn't know that looking at that headline. Now that's impressive. And then looking once again to our, I guess now weekly, Aaron Jones check-in. A bit of a disappointing week for Jones, but he did take more control of that Green Bay backfield, and his week was more or less just kind of ruined from that fumble. But looking still Lassie, who's had a rough season overall, puts up 103 points in a week, and like a down scoring week across the league. I think it is very promising for him, who still has an outside chance at a division title in the Studs and Stoners.
Yeah, putting up a top 6 score without having your player that's basically been carrying your team in Saquon Barkley, maybe Lassie's team isn't quite as out of this as we may have first thought.
Yeah. Moving over now to Jake versus Greg. Jake wins again, 102 points, good enough for this week. But he wins this week with no help from Mike Evans, who went 1 for 10 for 16 yards with Fitzpatrick as his quarterback. That is not what anyone expected to see. And yeah, I don't. It's pretty inexcusable and pretty inexplicable. And then looking to his running back core, Zeke had a fine game. Adrian Peterson was shut down a bit in Atlanta, mostly because Washington has been just destroyed by injuries recently, especially their offense. Their offensive line is like a shell of what it was, and so that could be a rest of season downgrade for Adrian Peterson. That's something to watch. And then just looking over up here, 7 points flat for Mitchell Trubisky. Hey Jake, how's that $54 for Mitchell Trubisky feel? Does that still feel good for you? I'm just wondering.
I bet he did way better than Deshaun Watson did this week too. Like obviously.
Yeah. And looking over to Greg's side, in our weekly, is Greg going to start the right quarterback watch? No, he started the wrong one again. It's fun. It's so funny. No matter like what the technically right play going into the week is, he always gets the wrong one. So that's always fun. See if we can do this week. See, Matt Ryan has Cleveland, right? And then who does Aaron Rodgers have? Aaron Rodgers has Miami. That could be actually, that's a toss-up as well. We'll see.
Good luck, Greg.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas got production in that first drive for his new team, the Houston Texans. He did really well on the scripted plays and then was invisible the rest of the game. I like to see DT get more work as the season progresses, but I don't expect him to be a focal point of that offense until probably maybe playoff times, maybe not even until next season, if he's still around there. So we'll see. And we've getting news of an injury to AJ Green. It says he's going to be out at least 2 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks in a row without him, if you include that bye. That's not what Greg needs. Who's at this point is just mostly just trying to play spoiler, and hit as we go into division play here.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Logan did all right in a down week. Picking up the Miami Dolphins defense was pretty good, getting 24 points down there. Mm-hmm. And we can definitely see Cooper Kupp coming back on his team is almost vital for Jake Logan, because those two Rams wide receivers have been his main source of point production this season, especially with Mike Evans being disappointing recently. And O.J. Howard, man, he's real good at football.
Yeah. Alrighty. Moving on now, we have the next matchup was your matchup, Cam versus JP. Some takeaways from your side real quickly. This is a this is the second week in a row. It's a bit of a down week for Tyreek. Just not super what you love to see from him. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a third week in a row coming up here on the heels of his groin injury still getting over, and a Cardinals pass defense which is pretty good. I think top third for sure. But when you have the trio of Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara, and Melvin Gordon, it's hard to lose. So it's I guess that easy running back carry. And as we saw a couple times this season, and especially this week as well, playing your defense against the Bills is kind of OP.
Yeah, it is.
And then looking over to JP's side, I have some questions. Jacob did not start a defense. He started Gronk, who we were pretty sure wasn't going to play. I mean, in usual Gronk fashion, if he's questionable, he's not going to play. That's pretty much his MO. And he started Jordy Nelson. JP, it's been a while for anyone in this league, but this week you are winning the Ben McAdoo Coaching Award.
I'm gonna coach this team as long as my key card works.
Jake. Yeah, there's a couple reasons for this happening to Jake. I think most of it, though, is just, an absentee coach leads to absentee players. They're not going to try and play for a coach that isn't trying to play for them. He didn't even know Jordy Nelson was playing on Thursday night. Like, he's obviously not helping that Gruden grinder out. And then Jake also had the issue of he dropped his defense for Dak Prescott, not realizing that it could pick up Dak Prescott before he played because he played on Monday night and he was able to pick him up Monday morning. So not helping his points forward, which could be important for him going forward.
He also spent $25 on him, on Dak Prescott. And he lost Jared Goff this week in a trade too. So yeah, it's a lot of things not going JP's way right now. Hopefully that continues this week. Alrighty. Now our next matchup here, we have Tyler versus Logan. Tyler picking up a clutch win to stay competitive in a division that might be up for grabs. So we'll talk about that soon. But I was excited to see Julio Jones finally scored. I mean, I think everyone was excited to see that, besides for Logan. It was a great moment in the end zone with and on the sideline with all of his teammates celebrating with him. Some notes here. James White left the game for a little bit with an injury. Seemed to be just fine though. But it's interesting to see how this New England backfield is going to shake out now with Cordell Patterson, who I don't expect to have any kind of role moving forward, but you never know with Bill Belichick. And Sony Michel practiced today in full, I believe. So we'll see how that affects him going forward. They were both very, very productive when they were both on the field together in like weeks like 3 through 5 or 6, whatever it was. So I'd like to see both of them continue to be good assets moving forward. This is a 6th straight week in a row with a touchdown for Antonio Brown, which is great for Tyler because he isn't getting the yardage like he has in his form in a lot of other years, but he is getting those touchdown passes, keeping him relevant every week. And then looking over to Logan's side, Calvin really does really well this week. I think he's definitely in contention for the best. Actually, he might even be the runaway best rookie wide receiver this season. He's running routes like I wouldn't say a seasoned vet, but yeah, I'm just watching him play. He looks like a veteran out there. He looks like what I thought Juju looked like last year and this year. They already are playing like players who've been in the league for several years. I remember watching Greg Olsen play a couple weeks ago. I believe week like 6 and against Washington, and even in week 7, he just looked like a guy who's in his 12th year in the league, or his 13th year, whatever it is. Like he looked like a guy who's ready to retire, but not dead yet. Scoring again this week, 6 for 6, 76 yards, very impressive. Not at all what I expected this week. And we talked a little bit last week about Logan stashing Josh Rosen for this week. Now he gets to play him against Kansas City in that slightly revamped Cardinals offense. We'll like to see what happens that week with Josh Rosen.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to touch on here is Logan's claimed to have the ultimate boom bust team, right? That's what he's been trying to construct. Mm-hmm. However, when's he going to show some bust, man? He hasn't won since week 2. He is on a 7-game losing streak. That just sounds like a lot of bust to me, man. Logan, you gotta have to do that. You're gonna have to do better if you're trying to get in the playoffs.
That's true. He's only scored in the top 6 3 times this season. One of those was week 1. I did not catch that. That's pretty funny.
7-game losing streak. Come on.
Yeah. Speaking of losing streaks, or I guess streaks in general, my week versus Dylan, it's hard when your quarterback scored 6 points, and then Tariq Cohen scored less than 1 point after scoring 26, 18, 18, 16.8. Cool. I'm glad Phil Lindsay's on bye this week. I guess I should have trusted Sarkisian to out-scheme the Washington defensive line with 30 points for Tevin Coleman, who I will be happy to start this week against Cleveland. But yeah, that kind of sucks. Although it wouldn't have made a difference in the end. It's just a rough week. Juju hasn't scored in like 4 weeks. Vance plays in like 2 series a game. I don't know. I gotta figure out what to do with him. A little bit, down week all across. Minus 5 points for my defense. I probably should have gone somewhere other than Washington. Admittedly. But Phil Lindsay had an okay game against a tough Houston defensive line. Cortland Sutton was just okay, but yeah, not a whole lot to like on my side. I'm hoping Sony Michel comes back this week. And who knows? Maybe Le'Veon Bell comes back. Who cares?
Breaking news
I
from the
kind of
Sweeper
do.
app actually says that Le'Veon Bell was spotted in Pittsburgh just now.
Yeah, he's at like their gym or something. I saw it this morning. Yeah, but it's whatever. He's such a troll. And then looking over to Dylan's side, hey, look at that, Keenan Allen. Remember that guy? He did something this week. That's fun. Hasn't done much this season, but yeah. Started off the game with that really great sweep, jet sweep, and that just kind of set the tone for him for the rest of the game. And some takeaways from watching the Steeler game this week. I noticed this last week too, but it was Cleveland, so I didn't really think about it too much. But when James Conner has the ball, he looks like the best player on the field. Like, the Steelers have a good offensive line, much better at pass protection than run blocking. Although they're still like above average at run blocking, but the way he bursts through those holes, he has great vision. He started adding a lot of patience to his game, taking a note from Bell. Conner looks like the best player on the field, and he's looking like, debatably that was the pick of the draft for Dylan. Well, I don't know if it's debatable. I think that was the pick of the draft. As he continues to be a dominant force, I think that Dylan could very easily rely on the back of James Conner to lead him to a championship this season, or at least get close. And just other quick notes. This is the second good week in a row for Deion Lewis. Maybe something to watch. Not super sure.
Yeah, all I can really say about this game is, Frankie, man, come on. Like, you got to make this podcast look better than that.
What did I said something in the group chat. I tried to be as like a coach speak as possible. I was like, you get knocked down, but you got to get back up. We're gonna refocus up. We're gonna come again this week. I'm gonna beat JP this week, so it's okay. But yeah, I know, I agree.
Oof.
Alrighty. So that was our weekly rewind, and we're going to do now a segment. We're going to go over what teams need. We are 5 games out from the playoffs. That's 3 divisional games and the Week 13 doubleheader, which of course you can check out the schedule for that on the pin post in Sleeper if you ever want to check that out. And so we'll start here. We'll go alphabetically and talk about what teams need to get into playoffs to secure a favorable spot in the playoff bracket. Starting off with Cam. Cam, what do you need going into these next couple weeks?
All right, so right now I'm 1 win and 150 points ahead of the second place in the Alphas division, Devin. And I have a win over Devin too, in case head-to-head matters right now. So all I really need to do is just either beat Devin to just hold him, or keep that head-to-head tiebreaker, or just get, I'd say, 2 wins inside division could probably secure me that division title, because my Week 13 games are between Greg and Lassie, should be nice.
Oh my God, who scheduled that?
Someone that was nice.
What? Is that real?
I think so.
I'm pissed.
I'm upset.
Oh, jeez. We have Cam versus Greg. Cam versus Lassie. Oh my God.
Yeah, so, got a nice easy week going into playoffs, hopefully.
But I'm mad.
Yeah, so really, all I'm really looking at going into playoffs, because I'm confident that I can secure a playoff spot with my 7-2 record. I don't really care between whatever 3rd through 6th position in playoffs I get, but I'm trying to get that first round bye off of Levi, maybe Dylan if Levi can beat Dylan. But I'm just gonna have to win out and hope that one of them has to lose at least one more game, and I just have to stay ahead of that.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So next, we're talking about my division mate, Devin.
Devin at 6-3, still vying for division title. Second, so I've written here, he's looking for the second wild card spot. Looking, I guess that'd be behind Levi, and he's 1 game out from the division lead in the Alphas.
Mm-hmm.
2 games ahead of both Justin and Tyler for that wild card. Yeah, and we talked about you guys will be playing soon, so we'll see if he can win a head-to-head there. Yeah, Devin needs to pull out some wins here in the division play, and we'll see who he has in his Week 13 matchup as well.
Looks like Devin plays Dylan as well as Logan.
Yeah, winnable games for Devin, who's been a bit up and down scoring wise this season. But he can definitely beat Logan that week for sure.
All right. So next, looking at, I don't know, this one could be pretty tough to talk about. Dylan, sitting there at 9-0. In all honesty, Dylan could probably lose every single game out to the rest of the season and still make playoffs, because then he would end at 9-5, well above 500. And he could probably lose one game and still end with the 1 seed, given his currently has a head-to-head with Levi and more points for. But if Levi can get a solid win against him during these division games, he could get kicked out of that bye theoretically. And Dylan's definitely got to fight for that.
Very true. Spoiler alert, that'll probably be our matchup of the week next week is Dylan versus Levi. Definitely one to watch. Yeah, I think it's well said there. Next up, alphabetically would be myself. When we were writing up our show doc here, things that we need, I wrote for myself hope, because playoff runs are built on hope. Yeah, I am technically tied for the division lead, which is kind of wild, but I am 100 points out of it, a little over that actually. I have pretty much no hope for a wild card, which I've known that for approximately like 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks now. Although the alpha division hasn't been as strong as we had predicted, but yeah. So I'll probably need to win the division to make it. I do have a game this week against Jacob Pond, so that'll be fun. I think the winner of that match probably sets himself up, well, definitely sets him up the best to win the division. Definitely not guaranteed, as we still have some more division games. And then my doubleheader, week 13, is against Jake and Levi. Jake, Logan, and Levi. Not super favorable in my to me. And I'm probably going to lose a points for a tiebreaker if it comes down to it. But I do have tiebreakers over JP. Well, I beat JP early this season, and I beat Lassie, although I did lose to Logan. So that could be a very interesting week 12 matchup, I believe I have against Logan. Yes, that match could, either this week or that next match could, decide the division title and that playoff spot that the Studs and Stoners so rightly deserve.
All right, while we're on your division real quick, I want to bring something up.
Okay.
Since the first round of division games have ended and we went through interconference play, there have been 24 games that the Studs and Stoners have played against non-conference or non-division rivals. In those 24 games, how many do you think the Studs and Stoners have won?
So I've won 1. I don't know who Lassie beat. I think didn't Lassie beat Greg or something? Or I don't remember who Lassie beat. 24. I'm gonna say we have 3 wins.
Yep. JP has 2 and you have 1.
That's it. Yeah.
It's been rough.
It's been rough, dude. It's been rough. Alrighty. Speaking about it's being rough, Greg sitting over there 2-7. Has the worst disparity in division wise between first to fourth. As you have written here, you could win out and probably still not make it. Sorry, Greg. Better luck next year.
Yeah. Poor guy.
And then let's move on now to Jake. Jake Logan sitting there 3rd place in the alphas, still only very much in it at 5-4. In that wild card hunt for sure. Needs to watch out for both Justin and Tyler in that regard. He does have his game this week is against Devin, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But it is actually a huge game for the landscape of the alphas. If Jake wins this game, and hypothetically Tyler beats you, it's this week. It's the alphas is absolutely up for grabs.
Yeah, that would be a pretty crazy end of the season if both the top of the alphas lose. Whoa.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then back over to the Studs and Stoners, we have the current leader because of the points tiebreaker, at least in the standings for Sleeper. JP, who basically just needs to do the same thing I need to do, which is win our matchup this week and then win the majority of your matchups going forward. Yeah, I do think it will be one of us winning the division title, so we will see. Not a whole lot to go off there. Then we have Justin, who has no hope for a division title because of that Rotlack disparity, but is in the playoff, is in the hunt for a wild card spot. I see it here. He didn't win a single division game. I didn't actually know that. That's kind of wild. Which means he needs to really turn it around these next 3 weeks. I'll see quickly who he has for his week 13. He has JP in his week 13, and he has Tyler. Yeah, that's I think he has some winnable games going forward. If he can pull off some upsets against Levi or Dylan, and then needs to win the games he should win, which is Greg. Justin is definitely not out of it. Although I'm not even sure he wants to be in playoffs because he's a consolation kind of guy.
What I think is most important for Justin there is that week 13 he does have Tyler in it, and since him and Tyler are both 7th and 8th in the league, he's got to make sure he can get ahead of Tyler in order to get that last wildcard spot if Jake, Logan, or maybe Devin falls out of there.
Alrighty, moving back over to the Sets and Stoners, we have Lassie at 1 and 8, the most points against. That's unfortunate. Your season, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks, is over, but is it? If he hypothetically could win out and win the division, that's not out of the realm of possibilities. And he's been scoring relatively well recently. He's scored in the last 5 weeks. He's scored in the top 6 3 times. So he's not out of the question if he went. Now it's unlikely, but I can see a world where Lassie comes out of nowhere and wins the Studs and Stoners division. Let's see who he has week 13 here.
He would be in the group with me and Greg.
Yeah, he has you and Greg. He could if if he wins out his division matches and then splits week 13. It's not out of their own possibilities that he could slide in for a title coming from downtown, as one might say.
Yeah, that would be some shot clock cheese, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now looking at the team with the opposite record of Lassie, we got Levi, who's 8-1 right now, all but locked up a playoff berth with that only one loss to Dylan. But he did lose the one game to Dylan. So playing him next week, like we talked about, could put him in first for that Rotlack division and maybe secure him a bye, which is what he's probably hoping for right now.
Yeah, very much so. I'm excited to see how Rotlack shakes out, especially with the match next week with Dylan. It's something to definitely watch going forward. Yeah, and then let's look back over into the Studs and Stoners one last time. Talk about Logan sitting at 2 and 7, also in the race for division title. I say he needs to win at least 2 of his division games, this week and either the week after or the week after that against myself or JP, because he does have Dylan and Devin week 13. I can very much see him losing both of those. So I think if and as you said, Logan's on a pretty crazy losing streak right now, so he needs to turn that around.
Yeah, the one thing Logan has going for him, I'm not exactly sure, but I think his 2 wins in the division are over you and JP, which are the 2 bigger threats to win your division,
That's great.
So, he does at least have that head-to-head record against the 2 people above him in the division. So if he can just maintain that, then he will maybe get the tiebreaker over you guys in the playoffs.
Yeah, could definitely happen. Alrighty, and our last competitor here, Tyler Walker, not dead yet, not out of a division race win, and not out of the wild card either, I would say. If a win over yourself this week would be amazing for him, and if Jake were to beat Devin, then we'd be sitting at Cam 7-3, Devin 6-4, Jake 6-4, and Tyler 5-5. That's all just one or games less. It's very much a toss up at that point. Maybe not the most likely scenario this week, but it could happen. And as we talked about this for actually quite a few weeks now, is that we always thought Tyler would be the second wild card or the top contender in the consolation bracket, currently sitting at number 8, so it's a pretty accurate assessment so far.
Yeah, the one thing for Tyler is he didn't win a single game in the division section at the start of the season, so he's already behind a little bit there, but he's got to hope that that won't affect him too much going forward.
All right, dude, divisions are fun, man. This is
Yeah.
probably my favorite, besides for Fab, it's probably my favorite change we made going into this season.
There's so many implications. It's awesome.
Alrighty, so that was our what people need going into these next couple of weeks, and we will we'll now talk about this week's matchups specifically. We'll start off with our matchup of the week, which we have set at Dylan versus Justin. Because I think it's always fun to watch any team who has a chance to beat an undefeated team. Dylan, who in this matchup is winning, he's won 9 in a row. My record for the most amount of wins in a row in our fantasy league is 10 weeks in a row, so he can tie me this week, and we'll have to defend. We'll see if he can the week after. If he does win this week against Levi, that'll be fun to watch as well. But it won't be super easy for him this week. James Conner in the Steelers offense is going against a tougher Carolina team who's been playing really well recently, and that is a Thursday night game. And the Vikings are on bye, so if there is a week to take out Dylan, this is the week for Justin.
Yeah, Dylan's forced to currently start Tyrell Williams in his lineup with his 2 big wide receivers on bye, and Patrick Mahomes playing Arizona this week. It's possible they could just run the ball the entire time with Kareem Hunt and still get an easy win there. So I'm not sure if he'll need to pass as much. And also Dalvin Cook on bye, so Dylan has to start Dion Lewis, who has done well recently, but he's playing his former team New England in a revenge game. Justin's got to pull off a win here to stay in the hunt, but of all the weeks to do it, like you said, he very well could.
Super fun one to watch going forward. And yeah, so no try-hard game this week because I don't really consider Justin to be a try-hard. I don't think Justin considers himself to be a try-hard, which means Dylan will retain the chalice until next week when he plays Levi. Dylan has been holding onto that chalice for a very long time. So that's that. Before we go into a pickup, Cam, was there anything else, any other matchups you wanted to look at specifically?
Yeah, I thought we'd take a trip down to Alphas and look at my upset of the week.
I'm upset. Louder! I'm upset. Louder! I'm upset. Say it louder! I'm upset.
Obviously not Tyler or myself because I'm gonna, destroy Tyler. But Jake Logan.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Currently put beneath Devin in the projections. I think he can pull it off. Devin's got a couple bad matchups with the Eagles going up against Dallas, who has a decent defense, even though they couldn't really execute against the Titans last week, and a bad offense, so I'm not sure the Eagles will need to put up as many points as they really have to. And then, Jake Logan, he's got that Tampa Bay stack with Fitzmagic coming to town, with playing Washington, who just got lit up by the Falcons. Of all the weeks for Jake to try and put himself over Devin, I think he can do it this week.
Yeah, it'll be a close one. It'll be interesting to see how Marlon Mack can produce coming off an injury and off a bye as well against the Jacksonville defense, who's been a bit up and down the whole season. Jordan Howard, who's taken more control over the running game and a very exploitable, we talked about last week a lot, Lions offensive line. Yeah, we'll have to see if these Eagles producers keep producing for him. Just looking here at his quarterback situation, I'm wondering if he even decides to make the decision to start Baker Mayfield over Carson Wentz this week, just trying to play the matchup specifically. I would doubt that he does that, but it could happen. That could be a sneaky play. And we might be looking at him next week and saying, Devin, why didn't you start Baker Mayfield? That's you could have won.
Yeah, it's definitely, if Devin starts Carson Wentz, then he's putting a lot of money down on those Eagles players. He could maybe try and spread out where he's playing all his talent this week to try and prevent anything bad happening from being overly reliant on Sunday Night Football.
Yes, alrighty. It's a fun one to watch too. And let's go into our quick weekly pick'em. We'll just say quickly who we got in each matchup, and we'll start at the top. We have myself versus JP. I obviously have myself. Who do you have?
You know what? You got JP with the Patriots playing Tennessee. I got you this week too. I think you got
Did you appreciate what I did with picking up Marcus Mariota and to go against his Tom Brady pick, quarterback versus quarterback? I also picked up the Colts defense to go up against the Jags defense in that matchup as well.
I didn't notice, but that's some interesting foils we got going on in that game.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then we have Levi versus Greg. I have Levi.
Yeah,
for sure.
Come on, Greg. You can try, but
Next, Logan versus Lassie. I haven't looked at this one yet, but with Saquon back, I think I'm going to take Lassie in this one. He's going to make his run to the playoffs here.
you know, I was considering this as my upset of the week, but I didn't think that it was fair to really call Lassie as someone that would be upset, considering he's only currently projected for 15 points less, but that's without Saquon in his lineup and no tight end. But I guess if you took Lassie, I don't want to keep copying you, so I'll go with Logan here.
Alrighty. And then we have Cam versus Tyler. I'm going to pick you.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I'm projected for 130 right now. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Alrighty. And so now, let's get into our mailbag. As I mentioned earlier, a full mailbag. I'm excited to see. And we'll start off with the first question here. And yeah, I'll just read it. Who is truly the worst team in the league? Now, I have some problems with this question. First off, why are you using the word truly? But it's like, are you saying that all of my previous assessments of the power rankings have not been truly like accurate? Are you claiming bias? I feel a little attacked by your word choice. That's all I'm saying. Who is really the worst team in the league? I mean, it's either with Sony Michel coming back, Philip Lindsay continuing his role. Maybe I can get Allen Robinson going a couple weeks. I don't think it's myself. With Lassie, still has a chance with the division lead. I'm not sure I can give it to Lassie either. I think I'm going to give it to Greg. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously between those three teams, and I feel like I have to give it to Greg too, especially with AJ Green's injury right now, and Fournette obviously with the ability to re-injure himself. Because, I mean, Lassie's got Breeze and Saquon, who are really good. You got a couple upside pieces coming back with Sony Michel. Greg's got, I don't know, Demaryius Thomas now. It's not great.
Yeah. Alrighty. Next question. It's not really a question. I guess more of a statement or a shout out, really. Shout out to Dylan starting Tyrell. We mentioned earlier he's going to be starting Tyrell Williams. Cool. Not a question. Next up, we have this written in. It says, Frankie, you made fun of Cam for having a worse week last week than you had all this year, and then go out and put up 40 points. What do you have to say for yourself? I have to say I put up 44.94 points. Thank you very much. Moving on. Why does Cam only suck when I'm not playing him? And that's fantasy. That's fantasy.
Yeah, I never suck. Pay no attention to past week failures. I'm the best. Actually, no. I suck against good teams because the only teams I've lost against were Levi and Dylan, and those were, I think, my two worst scoring weeks. I just can't show up in big games. I don't know, man.
Yeah. You get nervous. You get the nerves, pregame nerves. You're like Andy Dalton in prime time.
Oh no! Don't put that curse on me.
You put that curse on yourself, man. How many times are you gonna lose in the playoffs with the best team?
I don't lose in playoffs. I lose in championships. God dang it.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Alrighty, and the last question we have here is Travis Kelce a first-round pick in next year's fantasy mock drafts? No. I mean, that's kind of an odd question because mock drafts, I guess hypothetically, because they're not real. But sure. Is Travis Kelce a number one pick, a first-round pick in next year's draft? Might be a more poignant question. And no, Gronk was like a second-round pick. I mean, some people were drafting him at the turn. I do remember that. But he was a keeper in our league. But no, Travis Kelce is not a first-round pick. I mean, I get that Mahomes is great, and having a one of those top 3 tight ends of Gronk, Ertz, and Kelsey is very valuable. But no, I don't think he's a first round pick. What do you think?
The only way I think he could get up there is if we have a lot of quarterbacks retire this offseason, taking out Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara if Breeze retires, and like if Phillip Rivers retires, then maybe taking out Melvin Gordon. If Big Ben retires, taking out AB, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it just seems very unlikely to me. Alrighty, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Annual Cam Fantasy Football Podcast. I've been Frankie,
And this is Cam.
and good luck to everyone on your matchup this week, besides for JP.
And, everyone. Y'all suck.
Yeah. And we'll come back at you next week with another edition of the podcast. We will go through all the division matchups, see how the landscape of the league has changed. Hopefully we'll have some good discussion this week about things like tiebreakers and seeding going into playoffs. And yeah, we'll catch you all next time.
Crunch time, boys. Get her done.